Play Your Role is a proud affiliate of 1985 Games. Whether it's incredible battle maps, amazingly beautiful miniatures, or just general tabletop needs, 1985 is pretty much set for anything that you may need at your table. From dice to dungeon, they have it all, and my personal favorite product in the store right now is the Deck of Stories. It's an incredible deck of cards that you can draw in order to be able to create an encounter on the spot. If you ever get caught off guard or your players inevitably derail the campaign, this is how you can handle it. Just draw 3 cards, put them together, and boom, you have yourself a whole adventure or encounter, and they are honestly amazing and perfect for being able to improvise in your game for those who are less confident in doing so. If you want to support the channel and help out a group that genuinely helps us out a ton, please go check out the link in the description. They're amazing, and I've tested their products personally. They work, and I love them. Enjoy the video. Chosen Ones. It's an interesting topic because chosen ones are a very specific trope in literature and media. Chosen ones are typically the type of character who the entire story is based around. The entire story revolves around this chosen one, and they're chosen for a multitude of different ways. They could be chosen because of a prophecy that specifically detailed out them as going to go and do something, and they've had this thrust upon them. Or perhaps they just fit the characteristics of this type of chosen one, and so they're assumed to be the chosen one and sent on that path. Or maybe they're the chosen one just because they're the only one willing to do it. But the point is, chosen ones are typically the central protagonist of a story. And in D&D, I'm sure you already know where I'm going with. Tabletop roleplay games do not have a main character. They have main characters. That's the entire point. You travel with a group and you tell a story together. And unless you are playing a game where it is just a DM and one player, which is possible but unusual, it becomes very difficult to have this chosen one archetype. And yet despite this, many people want to play it, and it's understandable. There's a lot of interesting things to explore when it comes to a chosen one archetype. So how do you play one at your table without it taking away agency from the other people at the table? Well, let's talk about that. So when people want to play a chosen one character, there's a few different reasons of why. It can be a really entertaining character study for one. See, if you're a character who is a chosen individual, they have been chosen for a specific fate or task. Maybe they're supposed to be the one to retrieve an item, or they're supposed to be the one to save the world, or they're supposed to be the one to harness a power nobody else could. That's a lot of fun, but it can be even more fun to explore the idea of a character who didn't want to be chosen. That is one reason a lot of people want to play that archetype, because the exploration of somebody who has a fate they never asked for is always a fun thing to do, and you can see it a lot all across stories. The other reason somebody else might want to play a chosen one is they want to feel, well, important. It's really, really easy playing D&D and tabletop games to want to feel important, because part of the reason that we're playing those games is to be important. We want to be the heroes. We want to be the main character of the tale, but it becomes really difficult when you're traveling with a group. And so that's where it becomes an issue playing this sort of archetype. And there are a few different ways to go about it. One way that I've seen is the group just agrees that one of them is the chosen one. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this because it takes a very specific group to cause this to happen, but it can be fun, and it can be done in a pretty spectacular way. I'll give a perfect example, and one that I constantly go back to, but you know what? Sorry, it's just a great example for a lot of these archetypes, Lord of the Rings. If you guys are tired of hearing me talk about that, I'm sorry. I've talked about Lord of the Rings more than I've talked about Critical Role at this point. But the point is, in Lord of the Rings, Frodo is not the chosen one per se. He, however, is the only one who can take the ring. He proves time and time again throughout the stories that the corruptive power of the ring is too powerful for any of the characters but him. And so he takes it upon himself to be the one to carry it. And because of that, he is effectively the chosen one, though there was no necessary prophecy that brought him to that point, but because he thrust it upon himself and because he proves that he's the only one who could do it. But Lord of the Rings is an ensemble cast. There are so many characters who are traveling along with them. And Frodo, quite frequently, does not end up being the most important person in a lot of their encounters, despite being the chosen one. In fact, when they get to the end of the story, where it is Frodo's time to shine, to prove that he is chosen to do what he's supposed to do, he's not the one who goes up the mountain, is he? He gets to the top of the mountain, sure, but Samwise carries him. In that moment, while Frodo was the chosen one for a specific task, Sam was the one who pulled through. And that's an important thing to remember in D&D. If you want to play a story where there's one person who's the chosen one who must complete a task, this is a good way of going if you have a player who's particularly shy at your table or who doesn't have a lot of agency, and then thrust them into the spotlight and gives them an excuse to feel confident in it. Because hey, they're the chosen one. It makes sense that they would move forward with that, right? It makes sense that they take the spotlight. They don't have to feel bad or shy for doing so. But it does leave the rest of the party to have to play into that and push things forward. Yes, it is Frodo's job to get that ring to the top of the mountain and carry it and resist all of the charisma and wisdom saves he has to in order to be able to get to that point. But while they were doing that, the other player, Samwise, was bringing him up the mountain. They must have the support, and you all have to pull together to make the story work with each other. You can't just focus on that one character, the chosen one, but you can have the rest of the party work together to push them towards that goal. If there is a goal that you're all heading towards and you all work as a party to get there, then the chosen one archetype works pretty well. But what if you are a chosen one as part of a prophecy? Honestly, surprisingly, this can be a whole lot easier to be able to pull that through, because when you're a part of a prophecy, that can be just one part of the campaign, because there's so much loosey-goosiness with prophecies. See, D&D, tabletop games, are improv, which means you cannot plan out a story so well. It's almost impossible. I actually made a video talking about that not too long ago. And so when you go ahead and you try and plan out a prophecy, you gotta play it loosey-goosey. In fact, I might make a video about prophecies this week, honestly. I may record it right after finishing this one. But prophecies must be played in a sort of improv way. You gotta find things that fit it. And so when you have a character who is part of a prophecy, what you can do is you can fit it into the main storyline. No, they're not the absolute chosen one. They're not the one who's going to take care of everything, but they're the chosen one to take care of that specific task, and the DM can work with it, and the rest of the party can as well. Think about the first season of Critical Role. Keyleth had to finish her Aramente. It was a very important part of what she was doing. Was it a prophecy? No, but it was a large task that she had to complete, of which she was the chosen one for. But it did not take up the whole story. In fact, it was an important part of the story. It was an important part of her character arc, but it was only one piece of everything else. And that's the important thing to remember about the chosen one archetype. Oftentimes, you will not be the only chosen one in your party. There will be others who are chosen to do specific things. For example, in that same campaign, Percy was the chosen one to retake Whitestone, even though he was not part of a prophecy. But each character at the table has their specific things they're supposed to do. They all have their backstories and the things that they put in, and they'll usually all play together. When you're the chosen one, however, it usually just means you are the only one who could accomplish it, while the others may have a goal which they want to accomplish. So it's important to remember that, and also take into account how it plays into your character. What does it do for you? How does the chosen one affect your character? What does it mean because you've been chosen? How does that affect your psyche? Remember that, because it will be an important part of the character itself and how to play it. Because if you're not taking into account how it makes your character feel that they have lost agency because they're being forced to do this thing, or maybe they really, really want to do it and they've put their whole value and personality into being the chosen one, regardless, it will affect you. And you will, in some ways, essentially be a gifted child and eventually receive burnout. So keep those things in mind, because it is important in creating a fleshed out character for this archetype. But ultimately, you're just going to have to work with your DM and your table. You're going to have to work with your DM and your table to be able to figure out exactly what it is that makes your character work without stealing the agency from everybody else at your table. And when you could do that, you can create a much more cohesive narrative where you can play the chosen one, the main character, but when you're finished being the chosen one, let somebody else take a step forward and take the spotlight. It's part of playing tabletop games. So go out into the world, make it your own, you beautiful bastards. Don't forget to have a great day, and never forget to play your role. Thank you. Come again.